I started my first business. We opened our dessert bar. So it was in hospitality. We both did not have any background in hospitality, nothing, but we were like, we're going to try this anyway. And we finally was able to grow brand. We grew the Choc Pot, that brand, to 5 stores. And then also we started a burger restaurant alongside them. We have 2 of those locations.
Hey, this is Dennis Consorte with Snackable Solutions, and I am here with Deirdre Tshien. Deirdre, did I pronounce your name right?
You did. Well done, Dennis.
That is wonderful. That's an Australian name or something, isn't it?
Deirdre is Irish Gaelic, actually. It's so random. And every time I asked my mom, I was like, why? She was just like, I just like the name. So there is unfortunately no great backstory to my name.
All right, but there is an interesting backstory. I was pulling your leg a little bit there. You came from Malaysia and you ended up immigrating. Tell me that story.
Well, I was actually a baby, but I think it's one of those things where, and it is actually core to my story and growing up, because like a lot of first migrant families, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of the things that generally you would have liked to have growing up. But what we did have was drive and this will to succeed. And my parents, they left Malaysia to give my brother and I better opportunities, better education, all of that. I grew up with those expectations that I had to achieve, and I had to do all of the things to make it worthwhile in a way. And I think a lot of other first migrant families, especially children, I should say, of first migrant families, this would resonate with them, because it's definitely the story that I hear time and time again. We're expected to do all of the things. So I was tutored from 3rd grade. I learned to play the piano. I took tests after tests and got into selective school and 99th percentile in the state to get into university. And then I studied a law degree. It was a little bit disappointing because I didn't do a medicine degree. But there was a bit of weight of expectation in terms of growing up in that way.
I can imagine. And what did your parents do when you were growing up?
Yeah, so my dad was a carpenter. He worked in a factory, and my mum was a executive assistant, like a secretary.
Oh, that's great. And then, so they pushed you to do well in school and to learn all the things, and then all of it. And then you graduated college and you worked at Macquarie Group.
Macquarie Bank, yeah. Yes.
What was that about? What kind of company is that? What did you do there?
Yeah, so it's actually the largest investment bank in Australia. I had almost like a passion, or I don't know if I'd call it a passion, but definitely a very strong interest in strategy and implementation. And so I always found myself in roles that did that. I was actually really fortunate because I started working there part-time when I was still studying in university. And when I went to get a full-time graduate job, I was also offered a place in a management consulting firm, but I decided to stay with Macquarie because I had really great relationships there. And I was really fortunate because I was put on this project that kind of one of those once in a decade type of regulatory reforms that was happening in Australia. And that got me visibility all the way up to the CEO, really exciting things I got to work on, and I got to lead a stream of work. So it was really cool. Everything from strategy, leadership, implementation, I got to be in all of that. So yeah, even though I was in banking, but I wasn't kind of like a banker in terms of the, client facing. I was definitely working on the business with various leadership teams, working on strategy, working on implementation, things like that.
That's great. Now, you were there for about 12 years, and then it seems like you caught the entrepreneurial bug. What happened?
I actually caught the entrepreneurial bug while I was working. So about about 9 years ago, I started my first business, and that was with my then boyfriend, now husband. The reason why I was still working is because I had to, in a way. He was studying medicine and he had given up. He wasn't miserable. And we decided, because he found this love, we had moved out, and through that process of moving out and having to cook for ourselves for the first time and things like that, he actually really found joy in baking, and specifically in trying to perfect. I love desserts. So he would be trying all these different desserts, and he was really enjoying it. Knew that corporate probably wasn't going to be the future for me. That wasn't really where I wanted to continue putting all of my time and investment into. So we decided, why not try it? We opened our dessert bar. So it's in hospitality. We both did not have any background in hospitality, nothing, but we were like, we're going to try this anyway. With hospitality businesses, you're in debt from day zero because the fit out costs are huge. There's leasing costs, you're paying wages, supplies from day one. It's just a lot. So I didn't have the luxury of being able to stop working because we had all this debt to pay off as well. But my husband did. He was full time in the business. So that actually started while I was working. We had started this business, and there's a lot of struggles at the start of the business, just like there are with any new business. But we did find our way eventually out of that. We finally was able to grow brand. We grew the Chockpot, that brand, to 5 stores. And then also we started a burger restaurant alongside them. We have 2 of those locations. And those brands are still running in Sydney, even though we're over here in New York. Now, when I left Macquarie, this is kind of a whole different story, related but different. So we had found out about 3 years ago that our store manager for our largest grossing store located in the heart of the city, we just found out that he'd been stealing from us and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from us. And it kind of took a moment like that to make you pause and reflect on where you were and what you were doing. And I think that was a moment for us. So at the same time, I was actually pursuing another business idea with another co-founder that I had actually met through work. And it was a fashion technology idea. It felt like a betrayal of a lot of things, like of trust, of our culture, of our team, all of that. And that started the reflection of like, is this what we want to be doing? Is this where we want to be? Is this what we want to be working on? And at the same time, I had this other opportunity of, exploring this really exciting idea. And all that together, plus on top of that, the fact that I had always wanted to live and work overseas. So I said to Ash, my husband, let's just move. Let's just do this. Let's just go and explore somewhere else. And so we decided to take the plunge. I remember talking to my co-founder. We were at brunch and I was like, so I just need to tell you something. We made this decision. This is what we're going to do. We can make it work though. You can do Southern Hemisphere, I'll do Northern Hemisphere, etc. And then the more that we spoke through it, the more I was just like, what, do you just want to come? Like, why don't you just come to New York too with us? What better place than New York to pursue the intersection of fashion and technology? And so she agreed. She just like, yeah, why not? Then we moved over to New York. I came with my husband, my cat, and my co-founder in tow, and made the decision for me to actually leave corporate.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, first, how long have you been in New York now?
We've been here for 2.5 years.
Great. So you've pretty much been here for a few months plus lockdown.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great timing. It was great timing. But the first few months was actually really great because my husband and I have been here a couple of times before. Abana, my co-founder, had never actually been here. So she had made this decision to move over to the place that she had never even visited. So it was actually a lot of fun because obviously the city was open and we landed in the middle of summer, which was like really hot, but it was great because we were out and about and we were exploring the city. And because we were pursuing this fashion technology idea, we had a hypothesis that our customers were going to be either college students or young Wall Street professionals, NYU campus and Columbia campus, and meeting with these young professionals and stuff. So we were out and about and it was a lot of fun. And then obviously, yeah, COVID hit. Now, the timing was actually like fortuitous for some reason. So just before COVID hit, I remember it was December. My husband and I were actually in London because we had to just sort something out with our visa. And I was working on the back end on some of the logic that we were putting into the software. And as I was working on it, I got on a call with Bonner and I was like, this is the stuff that I'm struggling through, but I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that this is still, even with all the testing that we're doing, speaking to potential customers, do we believe fundamentally that this is going to work? Like, we don't have a long runway, And we know that this is a problem that we're solving for, but is this a big enough problem that people are going to actually change their habits for? And from that conversation, we decided that it probably wasn't. So we actually failed the business just before COVID hit. So what that meant was that when COVID hit, we have to be indoors, obviously, we have to. And so it was just about dedicating all of our time on making our new business work and growing that. And so that's why I say it was kind of fortuitous. It kind of sucked that the city closed down, but it actually gave us a focus that we needed to work on our business then.
It sounds like you've got a skill that so many people do not have. You know when to pull the plug. You know when to cut your losses and when to say, you know what, I've given this project what I need to, but it's time to move on to something else. Is there some advice you can give people? Because I know that's very difficult for me. If I put my blood, sweat, and tears into something, it's hard for me to let go, even when I know it's the right decision. What do you have to say about that?
It's a tough one, to be honest, because I think it's funny that you say it that way, and thank you for that kind compliment. But sometimes when I think about myself, I'm like, is it actually the opposite? Like, am I actually doing this like, sometimes I get the opposite thing of like, should I be putting more time and effort into this? Like, what if this thing could work? I sometimes battle with the other side of it. But I think ultimately what I've come to realize, and this actually happened in my next iteration and how we actually ended up with Capshow, is that you have to go with your gut at the end of the day. I mean, data is obviously incredibly important and you need to make a lot of decisions, like have them be data driven. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about something quite big in terms of something that's going to consume a lot of your time, a lot of your money, a lot of time away from loved ones, you have to feel really aligned with it, because that's who you are. Like it sounds kind of dramatic, but in a way it is, right? Like you are this person that's building this thing, that's nurturing this baby in a business sense, and you kind of have to be aligned with that. I think ultimately that's what I fall back on.
You mentioned Capshow, and before we get into too much depth, help me understand. You also have a boot camp. Did the boot camp start at the same time as Capshow, or did one come before the other?
Well, okay, so when we decided to fail the fashion technology idea, we actually went on a little bit of a journey. We fell into agency work because at the same time we had been talking to brands about, because it was a two-sided platform, that the fashion technology idea, and we were talking to brands and there was a way that we could help them, and so we did through agency. And then from there we actually transitioned into coaching because we wanted to help starting businesses in e-commerce actually grow their business. And then this is what I talk about when I mentioned that I didn't feel aligned, because it was literally September of last year that I just didn't feel good about what we were doing. Not because we were doing anything bad, but as I said before, I just didn't feel like the alignment was there. That's when Capshow came about, which we had already been working on as an idea, but I know that this is where I'm meant to be doing, what I'm meant to be doing and where I'm meant to be serving. I want to help entrepreneurs find their voices, find their remarkability, because we all have amazing stories to share and value to provide. But it's just, how do we do that in a simple way to share our stories and our value? And that's what I really wanted to be working on. So with the pivot, we then actually launched it via bootcamp. That was in December. And now we're doing one end of February.
Oh, that's great. So, Capshow, I understand the purpose of it. And I feel like a lot of people have attacked this problem. It sounds like you might have something unique here. What exactly is Capshow? What does it do?
Yeah, so it's a software that helps entrepreneurs turn their stories into a bank of captions. Or, in other words, it takes the crappiness out of content creation, because there's not very many people I know that love sitting down and writing their captions. And captions, by the way, that connect is designed to connect with their audience. Because just like you said, Dennis, at the very beginning, you love stories and you love storytelling, which I love personally as well, because the stories is where we do create that connection, right? It's where we build that trust. So we should be sharing more of our stories. And so that's what Capshow is designed to do. You put your story in there and it will actually transform your one story into short form captions. That's what it does. Now, other people, and there are other businesses who as you said, do attack this problem of content creation, but it's very much driven from, well, let's see what other content is out there and pull that back and serve that up to you. We start from the entrepreneur story. We start from their perspective. So that's kind of the difference.
That's great. So, is this something that just makes people more productive? Can they move faster because of it versus hiring people, or is it something else?
100%. I'm not a huge, only because I've done it myself, I'm not a huge fan of necessarily leveraging social media agencies. I don't have anything against them per se, but from my experience, it's just any type of agency, sometimes I felt like a number. I felt like we're just going to schedule these things for you and that's kind of it, which doesn't really get the result that you're looking for. It doesn't really get, for example, the engagement. It doesn't really get you more qualified followers. It doesn't get you more qualified leads. And so that's really what we wanted to attack. Capshow will help with the engagement piece of it. So let's like make content creation super easy. And then we have a coaching program that, encompasses Capshow as well, totally optional, where we then actually help our clients with the followers and leads component of it. We have not been able to automate that yet, but we've been able to make it very cost effective and very time efficient for people.
So, help me understand, is this like a machine learning, artificial intelligence type platform? How does it generate these captions?
Yeah, so right now it's logic based for now, but we are working on building it into leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence for sure.
Sounds great. And you said that this is a platform people can use to get leads, which brings me to my favorite part of this interview, the snackable solution. So, Deirdre, what is your snackable solution?
Yeah, so I think the myth, well, for some people, is that social media is all about put content out there, someone will see it, hopefully, at some point, and they'll read your caption, they'll go to your bio, they'll click on your link, and you've got a lead. And unfortunately, I mean, yeah, that can happen, but that's kind of leaving it to chance, right? It's kind of leaving it to hope. So we're very intentional around using social media to actually generate leads. The content is important because the content is what gives you the credibility and authority, and it gets people to want to follow you and want to come into your community. But you have to actually find them and you have to actually invite them in. And that's a big missed opportunity on social media if we're not using it in that way. Now, the other thing that I should say to that is it's not about just going out to people and being spammy, which I know a lot of people are also afraid of doing. So the other piece to that is what can you hook someone in with, either solving a really big problem for them or providing them a really great opportunity to help increase their status. If you have that, then you can feel really good about the fact that when you actually reach out to someone to get a lead, specifically to get a lead, that you have something that is going to be a no-brainer for them and is going to serve them in the best way. So really, my advice to people is don't look at social media as just like a content energy suck, which it can be sometimes, but create something compelling to go to your audience with and actually start reaching out to them, actually start getting in front of them intentionally in order to generate leads from social media.
Deirdre, that was great. And before we end, I am curious about your thoughts on just building community. How should somebody go about that if they've never done that before?
So the first step is that you do have to provide value. And I know that we say this and it's like, what does value mean? For me, value comes in having a perspective on something. And that perspective can be designed, and people might agree with it, they might disagree with it, but essentially that's what will drive engagement, right? If you can start with a perspective and then you want to tell a story around that perspective. So again, it comes back to stories because you might feel like, and I know I've definitely struggled with this, that like, who's going to listen to me? Who am I? It doesn't feel right for me talking about the cars and the whatever, like, that I might or might not have, right? That's not how, but I think the story is actually the data behind the perspective that you're bringing, because everyone has different experiences. And the fact that you've had your experience means that you do have a perspective that you can bring and you do have value. So, in terms of starting a community, start thinking about what your perspective is going to be. And then you will, people will find you at some point. But if you don't want to wait for that, then actually find them. Go and find them and bring them into your community.
That makes good sense. And one more question on that piece. How do you know when it's time to actually ask people for stuff? So you build your community, you bring people in, and a lot of people are good at that part, but then they're afraid to actually ask for the sale or to ask for the meeting. But what do you have to say about that piece?
Oh, that's a big one. I like to build connection. So that might be one on one in, say, a DM or something. Once we get to a point of like building rapport, and if I can uncover enough to know that I can serve them, then that's when I will ask for it. Right, when I know that I can serve them. If I can't, then I'm not going to ask at that point. So connection can be one-on-one that way. Connection can also be, and that's why the boot camp or doing challenges and stuff, when you can actually show up live for your audience and serve them in almost a one-to-many way, but you're still building a connection there. That's what I also use to actually ask for the sale, ask people to buy. So that's kind of two strategies that I use day in, day out.
Yeah, that's great. And you mentioned challenges. People do challenges on all different industries. Could you maybe share a quick story about a challenge that you've done and what the results were?
Yeah. So, for example, when we launched in December, when we launched CapShow, and specifically this new program called CapShow CEO. So, just really quickly, CapShow CEO not only helps with your content creation piece, which is what CapShow does a lot of the heavy lifting with, but it actually helps with your lead gen piece very cost effectively without your time, because we actually train a VA, very cost effective VA, to be in your business, embedded in your business, and do it all for you. So we actually launched that in December via a challenge model, and it was amazing. We got like so much engagement, we got so much back and forth, and there was a lot of energy, and we did 30K off that challenge. So if anyone is definitely getting started in the online space, I would definitely check out running challenges, because it's been a game changer for our business for sure.
That's amazing stuff. Deirdre, this was very helpful, super valuable information. How do people find you online and learn more about what you can do?
Sure. You can find me at deirdretshien.com. Very complicated name, so let me spell it out for you. DeirdreTshien.com. You can find me on socials, so Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, again, just my name, Deirdre Tshien. Please reach out to me. I'd love to have a chat. And if I can serve you, I would love to.
Wonderful. Deirdre, thank you so much. And we would love to chat with you again.
For sure. Thanks so much, Dennis.